Hello, everyone. We are excited that you have decided to join us for our weekly interview series. If you want to see our full guest lineup for each week, you can go to our website at www.reachandteach.rocks, ROCKS. We have a great lineup. We have about 8 more guests during this series. So we're about halfway through, but we have another amazing guest today that we're going to bring out in just a few minutes. But I do want to remind everyone that if you would like to ask questions for our guests, please put those questions into the chat or into the comment section, and we'll make sure and get your questions answered today. So, Carlina, it is so nice to have you.
Hi, nice to be here.
Would you mind taking just a few minutes and introducing yourself, telling us who you are, what you do, and where you're from?
Yeah, I am Carlina Gugliotta. I'm a tour manager. I'm actually, as you can hear, originally from the UK, from a small city called Lincoln. But for the past few years, I've been based out of the US because the artists I've been working for are in LA. So that's what's brought me here.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you're a tour manager. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like when you start your day as a tour manager? What are the duties and different things that you do?
This is one of the hardest questions to answer, actually, because there isn't really one average day. It's a real mix of things, and every day is different, which is what makes it so fun, actually. But the essential job of the tour manager is to make sure that everybody in the touring party knows what's happening in the day, has all the logistical information, can physically get from A to B, because we might be going to 4 or 5 different cities in a week, or even countries sometimes. So there's a lot of logistical planning and but a lot of budgeting, because ultimately the management are looking at you to make sure that everything comes in on budget. But average day is difficult. I think when it's an actual headline tour, for example, then the days tend to get a little bit more similar from one day to the next. But something always is coming up. So whatever you plan out on doing that day, there's always a load of firefighting to do as it progresses. But yeah, essentially, on a tour, you're responsible for budgets, for getting everyone from A to B, for providing schedules for various different parties in the tour, depending on how big that tour is. And it would be, everything from flights to hotels to ground transport to tour buses to making sure that the meet and greet is going to happen, to feeding everybody, to arranging how many runners you might have, or just as a start, really, to liaising with the promoters and the venues, so that when you walk in each morning, you know that you're going to have everything you need.
Yeah. So we have spoke with some booking agents before. Do you work closely with the booking agents? What is kind of the communication between each of the different roles that work together to put on a big event? I know with you being a tour manager, it sounds like you have a lot of different responsibilities. But does that include actually booking the venues, or does someone else take care of that? And what does that look like?
So it depends. Every tour and every artist works differently, and obviously depending on the size of it, things can vary, and one management company will do things different to another. But on the whole, no, the tour manager is not responsible for booking any venues or shows. So we are sort of given the schedule. I'm with a couple of my artists. I'm more close with the agents than on others. So, for example, they might have 2 different routings that they're looking at. and they might come to me and say, can you look at these and tell us if you think that they're going to work, or which one might work better for you and why? Because although the geography might look the same or might look correct, it might end up being that, you know, to get from A to B, there isn't a flight to get there overnight or something like that. So that sort of thing, it can be discussed with the tour managers. But on the whole, we're sort of given the dates and saying, like, this is where we want to go. These are the shows we want to do. Go and make it happen.
Yes. So with all of these responsibilities and all of the different checklists that you have to check off, do you have a pretty large team that you work with to make this happen?
Again, very much varies on the different artists. But for example, on Lizzo, I think our headline tour, we were running with about 30, 40 people on the headline tour last year, which actually isn't huge. You know, when I worked on Adele and we were doing stadiums in Australia, then it was like more like 150 people moving constantly. You know, even on the arena tours, actually with her, we had about 100. But again, you know, for artists that have dancers and, you know, big dancers and lots of changes in the tours, obviously the more you have going on, the more people you need on the road. So you might have 30 people that are just truck drivers, you know.
Wow.
That it varies massively on how big the teams are, but certainly the core sort of what would you call it, coordination, organizational team can actually be quite small in terms of those of us that sort of sit in the office, I'd say. But it's, once you sort of have your people, it's nice to be able to bring those with you, knowing that you work well together and you've got a way of doing things. So
that is so interesting to think about, all the different things that have to be done and how organized you must have to be. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So my next question for you is, can you tell us a little bit about the journey of how you got to where you are? I know you just didn't start out as a tour manager. So what did that journey look like for you?
For me, and it's important that it's for me, because every tour manager you talk to will have a totally different journey, because there's no degree that you take and then you go the next day and you are employed as a tour manager. But I'll try and be relatively brief because it's a long one. When I was the schooling in the UK was slightly different to the US, so we can leave at 16. So when I was 16, I left school and I went to a contemporary music college, because I always loved music and I always knew sort of that's the path I wanted to go down. But it was very quickly I kind of learned that I did not want to perform. I didn't enjoy performing. I didn't enjoy being on the stage or in front of the camera. This is a bizarre thing for me even today. So in the college, they taught us about management and tour management, and I very quickly decided that's something that I wanted to do. And actually, when I look back now, when I was 16, 17, I would actually arrange for me and my friends to go to watch gigs in London, which was about a sort of 4-hour drive on a bus away from our hometown. And I would book tickets for the gig and I would arrange our train or our bus to London, and I would book us all in a hostel. And so when I look back now, I was kind of already being a tour manager for me and my friends then. But when I did my music college, I did 2 years there. And when I left, there wasn't really a job per se to go into. But I started as a runner at a venue called the Engine Shed in my hometown, which was a new venue that opened up. And I started being a runner there. So when the gigs came in, I was the runner for the touring party. And because it was a student venue, and because they didn't have, lots of gigs coming through all the time, they then opened up a position on the box office. So I started just working on the box office in the week and selling tickets. And from that, I sort of stepped up to manage their box office. So I learned that side of things about how the ticketing works. And then when I worked there for about 4 years as the runner. And during my time there, I did, I tried to make connections or keep in touch with people. And then I moved when I was about 4 years in to that, to Wales, which was actually because my boyfriend at the time was going to university there. So we were like, well, we're going to move to Wales, to Cardiff. And I sent a load of blind emails out to people about, I'm moving and do you have any work? And it just so happened, one of the emails I sent went to a company called Orchard Live, who were working on a huge event at the time for a golf tournament. And the guy who was doing it was like snowed under with work. And he got my CV. He saw I'd had loads of experience in ticketing. And I was a runner, and he was like, and he called me up 5 minutes later and said, I'm actually really need somebody. Can you come and have this interview? So my dad drove me there, and 2 weeks later I moved and started working for them. And they also did music events, big outdoor music concerts in Wales. So the short of it is I was with them for 4 years. And ended up at the end of it promoting my own shows and managing the events. So, and they were big. The last one I did for them was about 27,000 people with Kings of Leon.
Wow.
And then I decided I was going to go freelance. And my first year freelance was quite unsuccessful, as most people's are. Very difficult. And I started where I did a couple of jobs for VIP Nation, which is part of Live Nation, huge, the biggest promoters in the world. And it was just looking after the VIP operations on the European tour for Ariana Grande. Anyway, I did a couple of things for them. It was a bit of a slow year, and I had a job cancel, actually. I was meant to go on tour on Friday, and on the Monday it cancelled. And I was just, oh my goodness, like, what am I going to do? And one of the guys I'd actually met at the engine shed, who was a tour manager, I called him and I was like, how are you? What's been going on? Just a general catch up. And I said, I was going to go on this tour on Friday and it's cancelled. And he said, oh, does that mean that you're free? And I said, yes, it does. And he was like, great, because I need somebody to go with this band to Paris on Friday. Could you go? I said, yeah. And he said, great, come to London tomorrow. I'm going to introduce you to this band. And that band was Adele's band.
Oh, and that's incredible.
That's how I got my first, tour management type role, actually, was through there. But it was a long journey to get to that point. But yeah, that's
that is so interesting to me. And so many times the people that we've interviewed and we've talked to, all it takes really is just asking. And so when you sent out those bulk emails and got one response, I mean, it sounds like to me that really kind of changed your trajectory on your life of where it was headed.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think that something that I always tell even friends of mine that are in the industry, because it's one, people think, once you've got that first job, it's easy and then you're in. And it's actually for my role, it doesn't work like that. There are only so many artists, and there are so many tour managers. It's not necessarily, that once you're in. And I still find myself continually sending blind emails to management firms. And the good thing is that once you have a resume that's got a certain amount of things listed on there, people actually take note of it, and so they will call you. And sometimes it's a case of just being the right person at the right time. You may send your CV to somebody, your resume, sorry, 1 week and they don't need you, or they're not looking for anyone and they're busy, but you might send it a week later and something has happened in that week that's changed everything, and they're like, oh, this person could work. And that's actually happened to me a couple of times since then, that it just so happens that someone might be looking for a change and I just happen to be there at the right time.
I love that. And that's such good advice for students to hear, is that, the answer may not be yes right now, but it could in the future. Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about, your tour was canceled. I'm sure you have experienced other obstacles in your journey. What were some ways that you overcame those obstacles, or do you have any good advice for students in overcoming their own obstacles?
Yeah, I think, this industry, the music industry and live music especially is like one giant obstacle, really. It is difficult, and there are lots and lots of competition. But what I think is really important is dedication and humility, actually, and not letting things, not giving up. Basically, it's not giving up. That's my main bit of advice, because it is an obstacle and it's very hard. And I think just staying persistent and remembering that there's so much competition. So whenever you have a chance to show anything, any opportunity that's given to you, where that's a chance for you to show how good you are, is to try and just do the job better than anybody else. Because as much as it's all fun and it's rock and roll and it's cool, actually people just want people to work for them that do the job better than anybody else. And so it's just remembering that, and not getting deflated when things might not appear to be happening for you. Because if you just stick with it and work hard, then they will happen.
Yes, that's perfect advice. I love that so much. So a couple of more questions, and then we're going to open it up to students to ask questions. What is something that you wish you would have learned at a younger age?
This question, I thought about this quite a lot. I think, I'm not sure if it was like something in particular that I wish I'd learned when I was younger, but I think some things I wish I'd known would be, which kind of goes back to the previous question, actually, is that things take time, and that's okay. Like, I think that when you're very young, I remember when I was 16, 18, and I kind of thought, right, well, I need to have it all lined up by the time I'm 25. And if it isn't happening by the time I'm 25, or by the time I'm 30, then I may as well, it seemed like such a long time away. And actually, for me, things didn't, I obviously had, I started my career in the industry when I was 20 years old, and I'm 34 now, but I still feel like it's only just beginning. Mm-hmm. And I think it's to not be put off by the time it takes, because actually it, like, my career, I feel is every time I get a new job, I feel like it's only just starting. So don't be put off by the time things will take, because that time will go anyway. Mm-hmm. So you may as well, keep, if you find something that you want to do, stick with it, and don't put a time frame on your goals, is what I wish I'd known, I suppose.
That is incredible. And it's so true that sometimes we think it's just going to happen overnight, and if we work hard, it's going to happen. But like you said, it will take time, and that's okay. That is totally fun.
Yeah.
So the next question we have for you is, what are some careers that you discovered after you had graduated high school, after you became an adult? What are some things that you discovered you may not have known existed at a younger age?
So many. I think, you know, virtually all the jobs, you know, touring, there are so many people on the road that you don't think about. You know, on large tours, most of them will have a touring accountant. So an accountant that comes with the tour to make sure all the money is working. You know, a runner even. You know, I didn't really know that a runner was a job. We have touring chefs and caterers and an entire, you know, on certain tours you have an entire wardrobe department that are touring washing machines and dryers, and one person might just be responsible for washing clothes and fixing the clothes, and, you know, travel agents. You know, I don't physically myself book each individual flight for people. I have a travel agent that does that for me. I'll have a travel agent that looks at hotels. So I go to my wonderful travel agents and I say, this is where we're going. I need hotels in this budget. And they'll send me a list and rates from different hotels. You know, at festivals and even local events, there'll be entire artist liaison teams that are working just to look after you when you arrive. So you'll be, you know, often you arrive at a festival, and they will allocate you a person that's your person to go to each day, and that's what that person does. They just run between their various artists and make sure that they've got everything they need and they are where they need to be. You know, there'll be people that are just looking after dressing room coordination and rotation and making sure they've got food and drinking then. People that are doing the guest list and ticketing. You know, we on Adele, we toured with a ticketing person that just looked after the guest list and you know, tickets really. Agents, managers, production managers, and also knowing that it goes outside of music. So, you know, sports need all these things as well. You know, when there's sports teams, comedians have tour managers. You know, I got a LinkedIn request today actually from Bear Grylls' tour manager. Bear Grylls has a tour manager. Who knew? You know, so there are lots and lots of different roles actually that all exist. Yeah.
So if we have students listening that are interested in one of the careers that maybe you just named off, or a different career in the entertainment industry, what actionable advice do you have for them? I know so many of these career paths don't necessarily require a college degree, but what would be a first step for a high school student interested in working in this industry?
I think definitely from my opinion, the technical jobs, you know, the audio, the lighting, the video, definitely lend themselves more to sort of university-based degrees, because there's an actual tangible technical aspect that you need to learn. But that being said, you know, there are event management courses at university and colleges and things now as well. But often they are geared more to a sort of a corporate event management side, because they're the kind of jobs that would look for that on a resume. But I think that outside of the traditional route, it would be volunteer. Just volunteer as much as you possibly can, and try not to be too focused on the actual one job that you think it is you might want to do in 10 years time or 5 years time, and try and think about the transferable skills that you could get. So, and don't say no to anything. You know, if you get the chance and you think, well, I don't really want to be a runner, or I don't really want to just take the beers to the dressing rooms, actually, by being on site at an event and starting on those tiny little positions, it actually gives you a much broader insight into what happens day to day, and everything that you can do will teach you something. So even if it's, you know, a small charity event in your local town, or, you know, it might be like you might be able to get a summer job being a personal assistant, or at a, you know, somewhere that runs photo shoots, or the local radio station, any kind of volunteering like that. It's all interconnecting, and the skills are always transferable. So don't be sort of blindsided by the one thing that you think you want to do. Just think of all of the different skills that you might need, and the different ways that you can get those. But volunteer.
Absolutely. Sometimes you just got to do it for free to get your foot in the door.
I mean, I did it for free for a very long time. So,
and you know, starting at those entry level positions, like you said, every opportunity could be a stepping stone to the next opportunity.
Yeah, you never know who you're going to meet.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to open it up to our student questions. If anybody has a question, you can drop it into the chat. The first one that we have says, do you choose the artists that you work with, or do they choose you?
I'd say, I mean, they choose me, ultimately, but obviously, you know, nobody has to do anything. So, you know, I'm in a position to say no, should I not want to work with somebody. That's not something I've ever done, but yeah, ultimately they would come to find us. But it would start generally with management, and obviously, you know, you'd like to think that once you've worked for an artist and things have gone well, that they come back to you next time, because they, as a person, want to, you know. But yeah, they come to us.
Okay. Next question we have is, do you go to every single show that is on the tour?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There would be, I mean, I can't think of a situation that I wouldn't be at a show on the tour. Yeah.
So while you're there, when the show's happening, when everything's going on, do you have a specific role that you play during the show, or do you get to just hang out and watch?
Normally that's normally when the show is on is actually my quietest time of the day. So I'll be unfortunately not hanging out and watching. I'll be like trying to spend that 90 minutes as fast as I can, without knowing that I'm not going to have an interruption for 90 minutes. Trying to do all the advance work for the next shows. But yeah, we do get to watch them.
Very cool. The next question we have is, how do you stay organized when you work with so many different people and have so many different tasks to complete?
How do I stay organized? I think that you just have to learn to be an organized person. I mean, I'm just an organized person. I've always been an organized person. But it does require a high level of organization, because you have so many different things going on at one time. Excel is my bestest friend. So get really good at Excel, because Excel can do so many wonderful things for you. Yeah, Excel's a huge help. But I mean, I have charts for everything. You know, I have Excel documents for everything that might be going on.
Yes. So Excel, you use that software. Is there any other software or apps or tricks or tools that you could recommend for organization?
Yeah, like I mean, once you are actually touring, you know, the main app out there on the road is actually called Master Tour. And, you know, years ago, I mean, even actually when I started touring, we had tour books. So it was a book with everything that was going to happen through, you know, what might be a 3-month period, what hotel you were going to be in each day. Every day had a page, but obviously things change and times change. So Master Tour now is ultimately an online tour book.
Really. That's so interesting. Yeah. So have everything in one place.
Yeah. So all the crew would have a login to that, and they can all see every day, you know, where we're going to be and stuff on their phones. So that's been a big improvement, actually.
Technology is wonderful. The last question that we have is, this is a good question. Who is your boss, or are you on top? So I know you mentioned that you are freelance. Can you kind of explain what that means? Yes. So I
work for myself on a financial level, I suppose. So I am my own little company, I suppose. But am I the boss? No one's the boss. Ultimately, the artist is the boss. The artist is the boss. But you know, obviously there are people that report to me, and then there are people that I have to report to, like management and agents and the artist. And but on the road, there are a few, I suppose, you know, as somebody on the road, there's a hierarchy of, you know, who people are reporting to, and often on the road I would be at the top, along with the production manager, of who people are reporting to that are physically touring. I'd say, yeah. But ultimately, we have people to report to too.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today. Is there anything you want to add? Any last piece of advice for students before we go?
I think, just to reiterate what I've already said, and don't let the time things take put you off doing it.
Yes, yes.
And work harder than everybody else in the room.
Yes. That is great advice. Well, thank you for being with us today. To everyone that's here, we will be back actually on Tuesday of next week with a guest. We'll be there Tuesday and Thursday, so be sure and tune in. You can see our full guest lineup there. Y'all have a great afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.